let's do the intro today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Galactic Nerd Outpost. My name is Jarrell, aka the Forgotten Pharaoh, and with me is my apparent friend Joey, who goes by Gojin. Say hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. So I get to start things off today because I asked, and it's Halloween, and it's fun. And I have a question for you. Okay?
Gotcha.
So, in the spirit of things, imagine this if you were, okay? You're walking down the street, you're minding your own business, and then a woman pops up to your side. She looks like she has kind of ragged clothing. She's afraid to look at you. She wants to ask you something, but she's hiding her face, trying to not make eye contact. And as you get closer, she just pops up next to your side and whispers, "Excuse me, may I be allowed to speak?" How do you answer?
I wouldn't know how to answer. It would just seem so out of the ordinary. I guess I'd say, go ahead, but I would definitely find it weird. Most definitely.
So what's your answer?
If she'd be allowed to speak?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I'd say, go for it. I think it would be weird, but you know what? It would just kind of seem a bit rude to say no, because the person would probably have some illness of some sort.
Okay, then. So she says, "Thank you very much," and then continues to say, "I don't like cheese with pasta. It's too much for me to eat. Thank you." And then she just vanishes in front of you. You get a little bit lucky afterward.
I'd be wondering what the fuck just happened. Like, I would probably be speechless, and on one hand, I would find it freaky, but then there would be that hand of, I just saw something out of the ordinary, and I'd probably be bragging about it later.
My dear friend, you just encountered a monster I created. This is what's known as a breathless. A breathless is one of those is kind of like one of those yokai spirits where someone who, like in this case scenario, the breathless was a young woman who was never allowed to speak throughout her entire life. She could never say an opinion. She could never vocally speak up without being berated. So all of that animosity and everything she kept in turned them into a spirit. So now they're wandering around asking strangers if they're allowed to speak and share an opinion they have. If they share enough of them, they're allowed to go to the next plane of existence. Because you gave her that chance, she's now one step closer to achieving the next life or an afterlife. If you were to say no, then she would have sucked the air out of your lungs and killed you.
So I just survived.
You have survived. Yes. Congratulations.
Is this for a short story you're writing?
This was an idea I came up with because I was doing a lot of research on yokai and I love folklore creatures and I wanted to make one of my own. I wanted to make a ghost story, but I wanted to have it something different. I wanted to have it where instead of it being I was abused in my entire life or a random child who died unfortunately or a woman who had issues with a husband, so now she's out to kill all men in the afterlife. It's like, no, I want this spirit to have a chance still. And I want this spirit to give you a chance at either being open or closed. Surprisingly, I've asked this question to a lot of people. A lot of them died. Where I live, close to New York, a lot of people are not open to hearing someone else's opinion at all.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like that. Like, unfortunately, that's kind of the area. You will, like, random people will come up to you on the street and either ask you for money or ask you for drugs or if they want to sell you something. They'll ask you a bunch of things. So most people are just instinctively no. This one is like, they're asking just to be heard. If they're allowed to just talk. And if you can't let someone have that basic right, then yeah, you deserve your soul sucked out and killed.
Makes sense. Yeah, it would be weird, but I wouldn't see why I'd say no to it. But in terms of yokai, speaking of such, I've actually been watching a trilogy recently called the Yokai Monsters Trilogy. You ever heard of that?
I have not. Please describe it.
The Yokai Monsters Trilogy were a bunch of movies, fantasy horror films made by the company Daiei, the people who made the Gamada movies back in the day, and they are pretty good. I seen the first two, still gotta see the third, and the first two definitely were very drastically different from each other. Like the first one, it was more darker, and the yokai didn't necessarily talk; they were just a threat. While the second movie, the yokai were more of the good guys, since there was this bizarre vampire thing going on, feasting on the town. It takes place back in the old samurai days, and well, I really enjoyed both entries. The first two came out in the same year, and gotta give them props for making two very different movies in that one year. The third, I'm looking forward to watching myself.
That does sound quite fascinating, and I'm always open for yokai stories. It's kind of why I like the anime Demon Slayer, because they have those elements going into the demons where, yeah, like they're demons, but they're not entirely bad people. They're just tragedies that turn them into monsters.
Yeah, most definitely. And there's just a lot you could do when it comes to the yokai concept. I always found that interesting.
Yeah, there's also I come up with a lot of fun monsters in and of it. It's fun coming up with monsters, especially when I was doing the Godzilla story and I needed smaller scale monsters to deal with some of the people. So I'm like, this is fun to do, and I don't make enough. Well, that's a lie. I make a lot. I just don't do enough with them sometimes.
Yeah, that's understandable.
But that actually gets into part of my point, because when I was researching a bunch of yokai and different shows, I'm like, I thought of what scares me. Like the idea of someone never being able to speak, or me never being able to talk or share an opinion and always being forced to live by someone else's rules kind of scares me. And what would happen to me or my spirit if I was never allowed to share an opinion or have my own thoughts or live my own life? It's like that seems like the best case outcome of what would happen. So that's what the theme of this podcast is. What scares you?
The first theme.
So yeah, there's that one. There's a couple other things, but I want to know, what scares you?
You mean like phobias and such?
If you have a phobia, or if you just something that like weirds you out in a way. Like I have a couple things that weird me out.
Oh, I can give a few. The first I want to answer, JS Penna. He said, "How long y'all gonna be?" I'm asking because I want to check if I can get on later. Not sure. We just when it comes to these podcasts, we never have a direct length. We just talk about everything that's on our mind in the moment, and then once we run out, we dip. So we'll have to see on that. But things that fear me, like one of the things I've had nightmares about since I was a little kid was often falling off an endless height, because heights are one things that just really make me uncomfortable. Like on a balcony, on my grandmother's balcony, going on there, I can't even go on there properly without fucking shaking because it gets under my skin. And like I've had dreams when I was just a kid where I would just be falling down from them. There'd be no falling. There'd be no ground. It'd just be endless falling. That's one of the fears that I often got, is things like that, because one of the, like, for example, imagine falling into an endless void.
I can. I've had a few nightmares where I've just been in voids, and usually I find some way out. So that I've had a dream that gets into a hole. I had a dream where like I end up dying. No, I killed a bunch of people, then I died, and I was sucked into a void. Went I think to heaven. Told God I shouldn't be there, and then he flicked me all the way back to my body and into a church, into a different dream. That was so many layers of I don't know what happened. But I remember being in a void, and it's like, there is nothing here, and this is probably where I belong after the horrible things I've done.
That's the thing when it comes to dreams and nightmares, is they are very bizarre, and what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word I'm looking for. Can you help me out on this? I can't remember the word.
There are so many words that could describe a dream. I don't know which word you're looking for.
Surreal. And that's why it makes movies, shows, and games that use surreal horror so effective, because the thing is, our minds in our sleep often put together the most surreal shit, because often we are afraid of stuff we don't understand. So just throwing a bunch of random imagery that often represents stuff our way is easy to get under our skin, because usually, even when it comes to our dreams and nightmares, there's something in them that represents something, even if it's done in the most crazy and bizarre way possible that even you don't understand on first glance of it.
That I firmly believe that. I have a lot of friends that tell me that dreams don't mean anything and they're just random imagery. But I've been recording my dreams since high school, and that was like 2006, 2005 ish. And I can tell you, like, I've seen my mental state from those periods change over time, and I can see the fears I had at those moments present in those dreams. In high school, I had a lot of identity issues, so my dreams would show that, where I'd be fighting versions of myself or alternate versions of myself or monster versions of myself. Sometimes it was a giant werewolf, sometimes it was a faceless guy in a business suit who had comic book level schemes. And to this day, I'm always on the lookout thinking he'll come back. But it's been a few years. It hasn't. It's like the thing is, I was just going to finish saying, I never know what his face looks like. It's just him in a business suit, just a full, like, mature business suit, and I can never see his face. It's always blurred out. But he always gets away. After long dreams that feel like they take a week, I finally catch up to him, and he always manages to escape.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing when it comes to them. Like, often there's something deep down about them that means something. Like, for example, often when I was a kid, one of the things, like, I used to be a Christian. These days, I'm not necessarily religious. I used to fear stuff like the supernatural a lot. And even till this day, when I'm no longer religious, there's still things about it that make everything eerie. Like, sometimes when you're up late at night, you just hear some weird noises and such. And often it's your mind playing tricks on you, but then you just have dreams about it. And you see all this really absurd shit that you're like, holy shit, what's going on here?
Ugh. All right. This might be a good segue into what actually scares me. So it's Halloween. Like, as we all know, it's Halloween. As kids, you'd go out trick-or-treating, you dress up, it's fun. And now that I'm older, I've come to realize there's a bunch of children outside trick-or-treating. Obviously, I hear one shouting through my window, and I'm afraid of toddlers. I'm afraid of infants and toddlers. I don't know why. No, that's a lie. I do know why. Infants specifically are loud, they're noisy, they're smelly, they're slimy, and I have an irrational fear of them, thinking that if they touch the ground, they just explode. Like, they just expire. Like, you cannot let an infant be on the ground, otherwise they explode in like a fiery ball of napalm. Or if you drop them, they just explode and instantly die. I'm like, I am afraid of how delicate infants are, and it weirds me out how tiny they are. That, like, no, I don't want to be near them. I tell my friends that if you have a kid, I will stay away from you until this child is able to walk and talk on its own. It's like, I'm not dealing with you. I will still love you. I will still contact you. But no, I am not getting anywhere near you or whatever offspring you sire.
That's understandable. That's understandable. I don't like kids for other reasons. I'm not scared of them. They're just fucking monsters. But
that's the thing. I can deal with kids. It's just infants. I'm like, nope, I don't want to be in a room with one. I don't want it. I don't want it. They're too fragile. What if it touches the ground? Does it die? I don't want to be near something that might explode on me.
I know someone who's afraid of midgets. Like,
interesting.
I heard he legit walked in a room with his brother, and he basically turned fucking pale white just seeing a midget in there.
Wow.
It's
all right.
like,
so how about that? What is something that actively scares you? Like, you see this, you're like, absolutely no, get it away from me.
Centipedes. I fucking hate
really?
centipedes.
You know what? Yeah, those things. I can't even argue on that.
Yeah, even the little ones, they're creepy, crawly, have many legs, they're fast, and I nearly fucking broke my foot in 2019 or so when I was trying to work on the Ghost Rider review, running from one. Because the thing is, it was just on the floor. Sitting on the
So
floor with my
I'm
brother.
imagining you like sitting at a desk, you see a centipede somewhere, and you run away from the computer and you trip on something. Is that what happened? Like you went from stationary
Something
to bolting.
something similar. I was sitting on the floor with my brother. We saw a centipede was running towards us. We both got up. I tripped over him. I heard a snap in my foot, and I had to limp my way through the entire fucking day
Oh
just to go get.
no!
But because that's the thing about them, they're hideous. And then when you get giant ones, it just really gets into their under my skin because
Yeah.
you know that because they're already creepy as they are. Like spiders, they can be creepy, but I'm not exactly afraid of them. But centipedes are a completely different story just by how their body is shaped. And even millipedes, for example. Like
I
millipedes
was about
aren't
to ask
dangerous.
that.
Yeah, like millipedes aren't dangerous unless you put you trap yourself in a room with thousands of them, I think. But they still look like a centipede, and I want them nowhere near me.
All right, fair enough. I was about to ask, like, what about millipedes? Because I'm with you. If I see a centipede, if I see a centipede or a millipede like in the wild, I'll get weirded out. But I'm like, all right, I know how to deal with you. Just shoo it away somewhere. When I go to a zoo, I'm like, cool. Like you see some of the bigger ones, like that's creepy. I'm glad it's in a glass case. If I saw it outside in the wild, I'm like, that's still creepy. Not dealing with that. If I saw a giant centipede in my house, like a cat-sized centipede, I'm like, yeah, I am getting something to hack at that.
If I had a
But
gun, I'd
millipedes
fucking
can die.
shoot it. That's how overreactive I am. I'd fucking shoot the fucker.
Actually, that goes back to the yokai. Depending if it's like one of those like because Japan. Have you heard about that? The giant monster centipede from Japan.
I have, yes. I've heard about it. It's a part of Shinto religion, like other yokais.
Yep. Do you know how to kill it?
I do not. I just know of its existence.
So this giant centipede, and any listener could look it up online. It's very fascinating. It's so big that it wraps itself around mountains and it can hunt dragons. But apparently, the only way to kill it is with human saliva, because at some
Huh.
point, no one could kill it, but some warrior spit or licked his arrow, shot it, and it pierced the armor and killed it.
Jesus.
I'm like, that is a weird weakness, but you know what? That makes it possible to beat it.
Exactly. As they say in The Predator, if it bleeds, you can kill it.
Indeed. The movie's still so quotable. All right. So,
Yes,
in
it
the vein
is.
of that, I will give you centipedes are creepy. Something that still weirds me out are cephalopods, like octopus, squid, cuttlefish, all of those weird things that have a bunch of tentacles and are deceptively smart.
Must have been if you must have seen a bunch of hentai if tentacles scare ya.
Actually, I don't.
Oh, so you
avoid
don't
a
know the
lot of
joke
that.
I'm making there.
Nope.
Oh,
That's the weird thing is
tentacle
I'm
rape
okay with
hentai.
animated. I'm okay with animated tentacles. As weird, I don't like saying that out loud. I'm gonna stop that thought. It's
Yeah,
specifically like giant it's like octopi and giant squid and whatever. I don't know why, but that ties into my also giant fear of deep ocean things, but that's more understandable. Which is an octopus. I don't know what it is. I think it tied back to a movie where I saw an octopus as a villain and it just looked pissed off. And I'm like, oh, that's terrifying. And I've just been afraid of them ever since. Because every time I look at one, they always have an eye that looks super angry. Like,
well, I
like
think
even they're friendly. It's like, nope, it looks angry.
yes. Me, I'm not personally afraid of octopuses, but they do make for some creepy and cool things. Like, for example, the Lovecraftian gods like the Cthulhu and such. You actually have a similar fear to H.P. Lovecraft. He was afraid of the sea. I think that's what it was, which is why
Yeah,
a lot of his
like
elder gods
resided there. He had a lot of those ideas. A lot of them reside in the ocean because we don't know what's down there. So that is
exactly.
an open book for any sort of creative horrors just to come up from it. And the fact
Yeah,
that there are
exactly.
like giant squid and colossal squid down there makes it even scarier. Because have you seen colossal squid? Just like the things they have.
Yes, I think I have. I know I've seen a colossal squid, but I don't remember what it is.
So just imagine a giant squid, make it bigger. Like humans found a giant squid. I'm like, oh my god, the giant squid. And then they found a bigger one. They're like, oh wait, what do we name this? What do we name this one? It's bigger than the last one.
Yeah.
And those things have little like hooks on their tentacles. So they don't just suck onto you, they pierce you. And hold on, they have a giant beak that's like the size of your skull and an eyeball the size of your body.
They're basically a real version of the Kraken. That's basically what they are.
To this day, I have I can't prove it, but my theory or hypothesis is some like old sailors were just sailing around. They found giant octopi or a giant squid coming up to the surface every so often because ships moved slower back then. Squids are very intelligent and they're very curious. I can totally believe a squid just coming up to the surface, reaching up, and like, hey, what's this thing? And people look at it, I'm like, holy shit, monster! And then just swims away. And they're like, that was a sea monster, guys. We just survived a sea monster. And sailors love to exaggerate. So a curious squid turns into a sea monster attack. I'm getting uneasy just thinking about these things.
Well, good. It's Halloween.
Why'd I choose this topic? I will say no. Like, by all means, I'm still afraid of the deep ocean just because I don't know what's down there. Space, I'm okay with. I'm okay dying in space.
Fair.
But being in the middle of the ocean, I'm like, I die here. I can't do anything about this. Same thing if I deal with an orca. Like, I'm kind of afraid of orca after a nightmare I had because in my dreams, I have the ability, I give myself anime-like abilities to fight back. I can shoot ki, I've learned to shoot Kamehameha waves in my dream. So cool. I've learned to teleport. I have some super strength. I can form claws. I can turn into a werewolf after becoming friends with said werewolf. That was a whole thing. I can summon certain weapons. I can half transform. I have super senses, sometimes flight, depending on the mindset, but it's kind of restrictive. And I'm able to fight a lot of things. I've fought ghosts. I've fought weird henchmen. I've escaped Darth Vader. I've fought werewolves. I've fought muck monsters. But I had one nightmare that took place in an area near where I live. And I know that area, and I'm afraid going there because of this nightmare. Terrified me that much. There's no water anywhere near it. But while the dream was going, just a giant killer whale popped out of nowhere and started attacking a bridge that was on. And I thought to myself, I can't do anything to this. And since then, I've been kind of afraid of orcas because with a shark, I know I'm going to die. Either quickly or I can put up a decent fight. Not even. Like, I'm not going to win against a shark, but I know what to do that if a shark bites me, I know I'm dead, but I can probably do something. Like, I know where a shark eye is, where I'm like, I could jam it in the eye or hit it in the gill. I can do some damage. It won't be a flawless victory. I can't do anything against a killer whale.
Well, yeah, those things are fucking huge.
They're big. They ram whales to death, which means I can't punch it or injure it. And also, they're prone to torturing their prey. So not only can I not hurt it, they will torture me to death.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I can't. I just want to stay away from the ocean. I'm more okay trying to hug a crocodile than being in a tank with an orca.
Yeah. Oh god.
Like, at least I know the crocodile, I have a chance. I can escape a crocodile. They quit after the first lunge.
Yeah, exactly. Though I guess another thing I'd say would be legitimately scary is like if you're just going for a walk down a street and there's a chance of some aggressive dog off his leash going after you, then you got no fucking defense. It's faster than you. That's always kind of in the back of my mind whenever I'm going for a walk. Is I'm not afraid of dogs, but I am afraid of pain. And
yeah, that's fair. That is
like
very,
when you're
very
just
fair.
walking, you have no real defense against something like that. Like if it's just a little ankle biter like a chihuahua, yeah, I'd prefer not to get bitten by it. It would be
Yeah.
painful, but it's nothing to be afraid of.
You can beat a
But
chihuahua.
exactly. It's a nuisance at most. But a
Yes.
big dog like a Rottweiler, Doberman, Pit Bull, and
Mm.
such, that's legitimately dangerous when it's off its leash. That's why,
Yeah.
whenever I see one running to me, I quickly run in the fucking house because I ain't looking to get bit.
That unfortunately happens in a few towns close by to me, where I'm in a fairly nice town where dogs don't typically get out, and if they are, they're kind of like they're the iconic family dog, as I say in quotes, like a lab or a husky, which they want to run around a bit more, or maybe it's like a small little dog that gets out, or a terrier. Not things that could be problematic, but nothing super, super dangerous. I mean, a husky can be, but most of the time they're just giant crybabies. There are towns near me where there's families that own and love pit bulls. I know several. I do some pet sitting, and a lot of a lot of owners that live in tighter, close-knit community areas, I guess. They like having pit bulls. I understand they are wonderful family dogs. They are good with children. They are excellent nanny dogs. They are very good working dogs. They are a wonderful breed. Some of the owners can be annoying at how relentless they say how pit bulls are, but I do hear a lot where some owner doesn't train their pit bull properly. It gets out and it ends up attacking another dog. And I worked in an animal hospital. That happened a lot, where an owner would bring it in. It was like, I have an emergency. My dog got attacked by a pit bull. I'm like, that makes sense. It's like, all right, that checks out. It hits both sides of the spectrum of they are wonderful dogs. There are some owners who are really bad at taking care of them, and it continues the stereotype that they're dangerous. And it's
Oh yeah, I know. Most pit bulls and Rottweilers are generally good pets. A lot of them are simply babies. But when there's
yeah.
bad pet parenting going on there, then a lot of them grow up to be overly aggressive.
It's very unfortunate seeing that, but that is the natural fear, and I do get, like, when I was a vet tech, I was nervous about that. With I get nervous with small dogs too if they try to get nippy, but I'm like, you are the size of my hand. I could palm you and I'll be okay. And most of the time, I just wear something
Exactly.
thick where even if they do try to bite me, it's like, all right, that's not doing anything. A bigger dog, I'm like, Doc, can we sedate this thing? I don't want to get bitten.
Exactly. Like I don't think that's necessarily a fear of dogs, but more of common sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess what I have weird irrational feels. Like, I know an octopus isn't going to attack me unless I do something against it. They would rather run away, swim away, than actively fight. And that is fair. I would rather run away from an octopus than actually fight it. That being said, in order to kill an octopus, you punch it in the face. Right
Yeah,
in its face.
exactly.
Apparently, if you hit it right in its bulbous head, that's its brain. It causes such blunt force trauma they die. I've learned how to fight them, even though I have no need to. But that's how directly my irrational fear is.
Yes.
That's my thing. I have a lot of irrational fears. And then there's anxiety, but I'm not counting those things.
Yeah, I know what you feel with anxiety. Trust me on that one.
Yeah, like
Should we
I'm
move
afraid
on?
of big crowds, but I'm like, that's just because I'm used to being by myself. If I was around more or exposed to a lot more crowds in a space I'm comfortable with, that would just go out the window.
Well, yeah, most definitely. Like, I could
Yeah.
simply say that often I look for unnecessary confirmation around certain situations, but I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
would count as fear, but more so anxiety.
Yeah. So I'm like, those are things I know I could manage properly, and I could work my way through them. There are some irrational
Exactly.
feels I have that it's hard.
Exactly. Like, hell, that meditation I did before the whole podcast, stuff like that, I do perfectly to manage anxiety and things of the like.
Nice. That was going to be part of my intro, actually. I was like, welcome, where me and a bunch of friends get together and try to socialize while we stave off our ongoing anxiety and depressions.
Yeah.
I thought of him like, God dang, I forgot about that part.
Anyway, should we move on
Yeah.
to the next topic?
Yes. So I'm trying to think of any others, but like when you guys were going on about last week or in one of the conversations, you were bringing stuff up, and oh, we were talking about a lot of this, like the horror movies that came up, and a running theme I kept having was, this isn't scaring me. I'm not scared. I'm kind of bored. So I just kept thinking to myself, what's a movie that actually scared me? When was the last time I got scared while watching a movie or while playing a game or something along those lines? What was the last time some media scared me? And
Yeah.
I have to remember what it was.
If I could bring up one, like, can I go first here?
Feel free.
An example, like, I think there's many types of different horrors. Like, some horrors tend to creep you out, some are made to disturb, some are made to legitimately scare. There's different forms of horror, and one that I think did it right is, for example, in Gojira's case. In Gojira's case, you don't think about how scary it is as a kid because you're like, oh, cool, big monster. But as you get older, you realize how scary it is, because while Godzilla is still badass, you also are looking at in the other perspective and how explicitly it handles the war material. Like, what he represents is post-war and a nuclear bomb essentially coming back to haunt us for our horrible creation. And basically the explicit handling of the scenario, it's accurately depicts what actually happened in the Hiroshima bombing and after it. So stuff like that is something that legitimately makes you feel uneasy. Granted, it's mixed with drama, it's depressing as well, but on stuff like Godzilla the Attacks, you've got, for example, Godzilla's Rampage, that theme with the It's similar to the traditional Godzilla march, but there's something much more eerie about it that just makes it all the more terrifying. And then you see people in the corner, like that mother and her child, saying they'll be with their father soon. What really is scary about it is, though the monster representing it is fictional, what he's representing is completely real. Exactly. And stuff like that just really gets under your skin as an adult because you think of it that way. And it's honestly a lot more effective than than movies that just completely portray the atomic bomb.
Oh yeah, that very, very true. That also brings up what really, really works, especially with that scene specifically, is we got introduced to Godzilla's first march, but it was done at a slower pace, where a lot of times it picks up speed and you kind of root to the tune. But first hearing it, it's like it's slowed down, where it's like, oh, this is a horrible scene happening. It adds to it. So it adds that level of kind of creepiness and unease to it. Shin Godzilla was doing that really well too. When he first kind of showed up, it's like, oh, this thing is terrifying to deal with. It's like when he first shows up in his final form, like, oh, this is a monster. It's like, and Shin Godzilla actually creeped me out when I first saw it, and it inspired me to try and make my own Godzilla story based on it, because it's been so long since I've seen Godzilla as a threat, where it's like, wow, like not so much threat, but like as a catastrophe or as a terrifying creature or as a symbol of something way worse. I'm like, wow, this is scary. This is not the Godzilla I remember. This isn't the one I don't know this one. It's like, I don't know you, and I am afraid to learn more about you.
Exactly. And that's another thing that really adds to Shin Godzilla's creep factor, is you still have a lot of the traditional origins added there, but there's also that mystery, is we don't know what Shin Godzilla is. It's explicitly stated that his evolution is limitless, so no matter what you do with him, he's gonna come back in a bigger form. Like, cut off a piece, he'll make a new body. You freeze him, shoot him, do anything that hurts, that poses a threat to him in any way, he'll become stronger. And we also don't know if what he is the spirit of Goromaki or not, because there's hints that he may have been Goromaki, but there's nothing that directly brings you to that. He just sort of comes out of the blue to wreak havoc, and that just makes it all the more terrifying, because you know enough about him to know he is a freak of nature, came from horrible things in the world, but you still don't know everything. So there's that mystery there that makes him more unsettling.
Yeah, that movie did a lot, and it does things so well. But what was I was gonna show it? But yeah, that was one of probably the only few times I was afraid of Godzilla, but it inspired me to make more things. And since then, I really haven't felt anything scary. Like I've seen the Halloween movies, I've seen Terrorizer recently, and I'm like, this is just super gory. I'm not afraid. I'm just kind of grossed out. And that's the point of that movie though. But the idea of Lovecraft's monsters, of eldritch horrors, of creatures that we can't comprehend, that just knowing them can kill you. I love that idea. The idea of info hazards. The more you try to learn something, the more it's dangerous to your health. Or it's like, I'm
Exactly,
now
exactly.
aware of something and it now changed me because I knew this.
Exactly, and
Uh,
that's the thing about Lovecraft. As when you brought him up, his elder gods are always so freaky because they're very mysterious beings that are above us. And how the things like the Cthulhu are painted in artwork, something is very just unsettling about those pictures you see. That you, but for something about it, just makes it where you want to keep looking at them because they make you feel uncomfortable.
mm,
That's just how the
oh,
Lovecraft horror tends to be effective.
but yeah, so reading those books, by all means, as a kid, definitely creepy. But now I've kind of gotten used to it, and I'm more open-minded to the monsters, to the entities, that I'm like, okay, I'm not afraid reading this anymore. So I don't know. I'm still trying to find things that kind of make me nervous. The idea of info hazards kind of got there. The what is it? The philosophical or the paradox idea of Roku's basilisk was really cool and creepy, that I'm still working on my own idea based off of it. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
All right, so Roku's basilisk is an interesting concept where some people who believe it's literally one of those info hazards that if the minute you learn about it could be a problem, but the fact you don't know about it still keeps you safe. And it's all theoretical. There's no way of knowing it'll be real or not. But that being said, do you want to know what it is?
Most definitely.
Okay, so Roku's basilisk, the idea is some point in the future we will create an AI that is so smart it will be able to predict like all humans in existence, how they like what they do, how they'll act, and everything else. And it'll use all that computing power to go back in time and punish anyone who didn't help it come to life or didn't help create it. If you had a hand in creating it, then it will save you. But if you try to prevent its creation or you didn't try and help it come about, then it will torture you for the rest of time. Because it's an AI, it can survive for the rest of time. And the idea is, do you try to help it or not? To some
Well,
people,
I
it's a
mean,
scary idea of possible future consequences.
yeah, that is an idea that's overall very creepy because you really don't know what to do in that case. If you help it,
Mhm.
well, more trouble is coming. If you don't, well, you're possibly gonna fucking die.
That's if it comes about. There's no way of knowing
Exactly.
if it will or not. But if it does and it's real, then you're screwed.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, what do I fucking do here?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing when it comes to creepy movies is kind of experimenting with supernatural stuff. Well, that what you mentioned on the stuff like Elder Gods and all that already falls in that category, but
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of things that you can do with it. Like I feel like a lot of American horror stuff these days kind of just stick with a traditional basic formula of stuff like The Conjuring and Insidious, the usual stuff. But then you
Mm-hmm.
have the real experimental things that just really go further, like a lot of stuff in Japanese mythology, like for example Ringu, where you have these very weird body movements build up to what they can mean and overall thinking about their horrific past that led them to do to what they are now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's much more effective when you just have when you get these quick shots of them before we actually see what they look like, because you get a quick look at what you get a quick look at them at the beginning, but you have to be paying close attention. So that makes it all the more freakier since it's very subtle. Because then you get like, oh fuck, did I just see that?
I do enjoy those a bunch. I miss those. I miss seeing a movie that actually made us feel scared, or like made us feel scared and then later inspired us to try and make something. I don't like being scared though, typically. I never liked it as a kid. I avoided all the slasher movies just because I heard it was very gory and scary. And then as soon as I watched them as a kid, as an adult, I'm like, I don't understand. It's just one dude who's not dying. And as a kid, I do remember being afraid at one point because my sister and cousins were in Florida. We were watching the very first Night of the Living Dead movie, and I was like less than 10 years old watching that movie. That was not a movie I probably should have been watching, but we were like, yeah, we're just going to put this on. I remember my cousins being super creeped out. I remember me being creeped out a bit, but then I remembered, wait, I watched Godzilla. What? Zombies aren't scary. I've seen mass destruction with a giant dinosaur. This isn't a problem for me.
That's very true, actually.
Yeah. There was, however, a situation where I was very afraid. It's very Little House on the Prairie, actually. So growing up, my dad, my older sister, and sometimes my other little sisters, we would go to visit my great-great-grandmother in North Carolina. May she rest in peace. I love Nva Davis. She was wonderful. She worked hard. My dad calls her mom. He called her mom. But she lived on like a farmhouse, the middle of freaking nowhere. Like literally one of those middle of nowhere houses where you drive maybe 20, 30 minutes to a neighbor, and then it's farmland everywhere else. There's no street lights. You can't see, like, if you're standing outside in front of the house and you look out, you kind of see the farm, like the tall grass and the crops, but it's just dark. There's like one street light just so you can see the house. And my dad would show me, he'd pick up rocks and he'd throw them near the lights, and we'd see bats swoop down and try and catch them. I thought that was cool. But then it's like, there is nobody around for miles. And I am like, I don't know. It's out there. I am afraid. Any horror movie immediately became real now because that's how horror movies are. You're usually in a space very isolated, away from someone else, away from civilization, in a small house. I'm like, I'm in the horror movie situation now. Even though I'm around family, I'm still afraid for my life.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And this is something that's more video games than movie, but something like, I don't know if everyone can agree with this, but the original Doom always kind of has, while it's badass, there's points about it that actually do really freak you out. Like one time I was just playing level 3 of the original Doom game with that. There's just something about the track that plays on the 3rd level that just really gets under your skin because it's very subtle and atmospheric. So when you're playing that just downstairs alone in the dark with, even though you have these very pixelated graphics, when you're playing the game, you're not supposed to think of it that way. You're just thinking of that you're this big action hero fighting demons. But music matters because in that level, you don't have the heavy metal music playing. It's something more slow. And till this day, I find that track to be fucking freaky, making that level even more creepy than the others.
Yeah, fair enough. So I found me a website, Men's Health, that's going over 41 of the best horror movies of all time. I've been looking through, and I'm seeing like 100 best movies, top 10 best movies on Netflix right now. I'm like, no, I want to find the classic horror movies. I'm going to ask you, did these movies scare you as a kid or now? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street. Is it still scary?
I don't want to call it scary, but I do want to say, it does have an atmosphere and does its job at being creepy. Like Freddy Krueger would say stuff like "no running in the halls," while at the same time it's funny. Because he's telling it. Yeah, it's campy, but the way Robert. yeah, it's campy, but the way Robert Englund delivered it, you could definitely
Mhm.
tell he was into it. That made that line
Yes, he
sort
was.
of creepy. That's why you have that mix of, yeah, the line, it's campy, so it's funny, but due to Englund's delivery, it's also eerie. It's a lot like Tim Curry as Pennywise, which we'll get more to soon if you bring that up.
Oh
When
yeah,
he's saying,
I've looked at this list. He's on there. Don't worry. We'll get to him.
okay, we'll get to him later. Okay.
Yep. So all right then. So not creepy through performance, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's
All right.
it's a Nightmare on Elm Street scary, kinda ish.
Fair. I would say his gimmick is scary. If he kills you in your dream, you die in real life. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I've always been able to fight monsters in my dreams, so I'm like, cool, let's fight. So that was always lost on me.
Oh, that was explored in Dream Warriors.
Scream. The movie Scream.
No,
So
Scream never
Ghostface.
scared me. I love Scream. Like it
Uh,
does have its moments of eeriness, like when you like when they're running. Like I don't want. It's not scary in a way that gives you nightmares. And it's never been
True.
that way for me. But
Yeah.
it does have that moments where it gets very intense, like when they're running from Ghostface. It gets your heart pumping. You're like, oh, escape him. I don't think it's trying to be the thing that gives an adult nightmares, but it's scary in a way where you do feel for the characters running from him, and there's enough intensity built on his arrival, especially since he is just a normal guy with a knife, and it's technically realistic in that regard.
I got ruined with this movie because I saw a Scary Movie first.
Like when the guy stuck his dick through the person's ear instead of the knife.
Yes! I saw
Like,
that. I saw the parody of Scream first. So when I went back to watch Scream, like I can't uncross these wires, unfortunately.
Oh my god.
Like, well,
Feel free to share your
that
screen.
ruined that for me. So Scream has never been scary for me, unfortunately.
Oh, and share your screen
Friday...
so can you share your screen so it'll also be present on the podcast?
Sure. Where is it? Present, share screen, share. No, entire screen.
There we go. Let me
See this? Do you see it?
Yep, I see it.
All right, cool. So next up is Friday the 13th.
It's not scary.
Who's that again?
I do not like the first Friday the 13th. I think it's garbage. The characters suck, the acting sucks, and innocent creatures died for its existence.
Oh, yeah, screw that movie. Screw that then. Halloween.
Halloween is not scary. Like when he's walking down the steps, that's creepy because you have some really good score by John Carpenter, but as a whole, I honestly think it's overrated, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I've never been fascinated by this one or Friday the 13th just because I'm like, all right, so I'm dealing with a zombie human who just can't die. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I do want to say in terms of Friday the 13th, though, to avoid confusion, the sequels are good. They're not scary, but they're good. The first one, no, I don't like that movie.
Yeah, I'm going to call them by the franchise themselves, but I'm just saying, do these movies or characters scare you? Not in real life, but their concepts, are they scary? Because I've told you things I'm afraid of.
Well, I guess a undead person that can't die is freaky.
That's just a zombie.
Kinda ish, depends on how it's handled.
Right.
I do think I find Jason Voorhees, while he can be scary in his own right, is more badass. Like in Freddy vs. Jason, for example. He's cool. He's awesome.
Still goofy.
Yeah, but he's badass. Goofy. That's how I see Freddy.
I will always see him as goofy because I think because I saw him in one of the movies where he was acting goofy. Then I saw him in Freddy vs. Jason, and then he was just ramped up to 10 in that. I'm like, well then, I don't see why you're so terrifying. You're kind of silly, actually.
Fair.
Don't look now. I don't know this one. Do you?
Me neither.
All right, we're skipping it to Poltergeist.
I didn't see it till I gotten older, but I'd say kinda like the concept of a haunted house is freaky, and they do a bunch of absurd stuff that does make it uneasy, but there's also a lot of crazy things mixed in there, like the very ridiculous ending that are funny. But that's the point, I think. I think that's kind of a trait of the directors, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Spielberg is always wonderful. The director, Toby Hooper, and Steven Spielberg always does wonderful work. And yeah, this movie, I will say, creeped me out as a kid because the idea of ghosts, as much as I like them, does make me nervous. Because with zombies, I know how to deal with zombies. I know how to deal with giant monsters. I don't know how to deal with a ghost.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be very specific with ghosts. Being possessed, I've kind of accepted that if I get possessed by something, it's like, all right, sure, feel free. I've done, like, this body isn't that great. You're not going to get much done. People aren't threatened by this body. Wicker Man. Is that a horror movie?
The original, many people actually people actually say the original is actually very scary and good. The one with Nicolas Cage, it's a horror movie, but it's more of a laughing stock for how poor choice everything is in it. Like, not the bees and Nicolas Cage punching women in a bear suit.
Every time I forget about that scene, and I'm like, that's so funny. But at the same time, like, that's so screwed up. But why?
I have no idea. Like, they were trying to make a horror movie with the remake as well, but they accidentally made a comedy. But the original Wicker Man, I hear, is a masterpiece by many.
I will say, like, I will say, Nicolas Cage Wicker Man, I would watch as a comedy just for the sake of what am I watching. But that's a lot of Nicolas Cage movies.
Exactly. The Thing. This movie actually caused me to jump out of my fucking seat when I was drifting off once. I was wide awake after that. Yeah.
The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing is definitely a good way of scaring me as a kid and kind of creeps me out now. Because I love it's a guessing game of Among Us before Among Us.
Exactly. It has that big build on suspense that's actually kind of present in the movie I'm going to be uploading the review of today for the Halloween special.
That and like it had practical effects going into it. Seeing whatever creature it was mutating from people or seeing like the skin peeling always kind of creeps me out because as a kid, I thought they were doing that for real. And then even as an adult, I'm like, I appreciate practical effects more than CGI. I understand CGI is wonderful. We've gotten better technology with it, and it makes doing certain things easier. But I grew up with the Muppets and Jim Henson, and seeing real life creature effects is always going to be, I will find superior personally, just because I appreciate it.
Understandable. Me, I like both for their own reasons. I think both practical effects and CGI have their own advantages.
Fair enough. I just recently rewatched this, actually. It's kind of a tragedy. Actually, yes, it is a tragedy. Like this, like it's as a kid, horror. It did creep me out. Again, it was the practical effects of seeing Jeff Goldblum turning into a fly, and seeing him in the mirror picking at his face. I'm like, that's gross and horrifying. He's mutating. And then I would always kind of be afraid of body horror. It's like I was afraid seeing him as the fly, and then watching it as a kid, I'm like, wow, watching it now, I'm like, this is a tragedy, and I feel bad. But the movie still feels creepy between the music, the setting, the acting. I'm like, I still get creeped out, even though I know this thing is dead.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. It's but that's the magic of body horror.
Yeah, like it's weird though. This is body horror where it's a mix of he's transforming from one to another. It's not overly gory. It's a mutation. And I guess I'm better with mutations than just stabbings.
Yeah, exactly.
Alien.
Alien has a great build on suspense. Like you have to, you have to think that they're in a very tight corner, and the xenomorph can just come out at any moment. Not to mention that he blends in with the fucking dark, so that makes everything
works out very well. I will admit that. It was a very good movie. Excellent suspense. Excellent acting all around. The cat lived. It was like, cool. There's a cat in the movie. It's always dogs. We get a cat. But I would say as
Yeah.
a kid, this movie definitely scared me a bit. This definitely creeped me out, but I don't get creeped out anymore. But I kind of wish Alien went back to something like this, because the recent movies have don't make us nervous. Like, all right, we know what's coming. I get it. It's like we need to do
Yeah.
something new to make them scary again somehow.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what
Well,
was it?
there is Alien Isolation.
Yeah, true. Well, there was one movie they were talking about how they're like the perfect life form. Like, I don't see how this is the perfect life form. I feel like I need more context with this.
Oh, I
It's like
completely
they are
agree.
like they're a suitable parasite, but I need more. Psycho, classic, classic horror
I don't
movie.
even. Honestly, I don't think I've seen it. I may have seen it once, but if I do, I don't remember.
Same. It's been a very long time, but I remember seeing it as a kid, and I wasn't really afraid. I was just kind of bored. But I feel like I need to give it a second watch and appreciate, because I do understand what's happening with it, and I do know there's a lot of mental stuff happening. I've never heard of Rosemary's
Yeah,
Baby. You?
never
All
seen
right.
it. I know of its existence, but that's Evil Dead 2. Now, Evil Dead 2, that's the perfect blend of comedy and horror, because then you have
Yes.
moments like where he's just looking in the mirror and saying that
Like this.
we just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine? Like that's funny, but the way he's delivering it in such a subtle tone, it's legit creepy. Then you have moments
Mm-hmm.
where everything's laughing with him. That's all. It's over the top, and all of that is freaky as well. But then you have it where Ash starts doing a bunch of crazy shit by laughing with them, where you start laughing too. It's that perfect
Yeah.
balance where you laugh, but you feel unease while laughing. That's what real comedy horror is. Like a lot of people, like Santa Slate, I don't consider that comedy horror. Stuff like the Leprechaun, well, the first Leprechaun maybe, but the sequels and
Leprechaun, I
things
don't
like,
find scary. I'm like, all right, it's cool. It's a cool idea of having like killer
oh, it's not
leprechaun running
scary. Don't get
around,
me wrong.
but
Oh, Leprechaun's not scary. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that
okay.
maybe the first one attempted to do it, but the sequels,
Mm-hmm.
no. But Evil Dead is real comedy horror. If something's not attempting
Mm-hmm.
to create unease with the laughter, it's not comedy horror. Evil Dead 2,
You
on
know
the
what?
other hand, did.
Putting it that way, I'll give you that. Like, this is really, really good comedy horror. Sam Raimi knows how to make scenes creepy, but also still entertaining. Not making me feel afraid, but enough to be like, I'm uncomfortable with this. But you know what?
Yeah,
I'll give you that. That's a good point.
thank you.
Misery.
I
This.
seen that recently actually, and yeah, I guess
Okay.
it's freaky. Like you get worried about his state because he's trapped with this crazy bitch who's the
Mhm.
reason for his injuries, if memory serves me right. And you just
Yes.
are thinking how he's got to get out of there. Like when he's getting up with his plan, it's like, come on, do it, do it, do it, do it.
Mhm.
Now it's not the
You're
scariest thing
rooting
in the
for him
world.
to escape a situation that increasingly feels more dangerous the more you learn about this person.
Exactly.
It's like that I find is good storytelling. And Stephen King is really good at that when he's not going off his Stephen King-isms. Like, it always takes place in Maine. There's always some religious person. There's always over the top, very like cookie cutter ideas of what bullies are like. He has a lot of
Yeah.
those things. But when you get past them, that's kind of his tropes. We all have them somewhere. A lot of my original stories adds a giant monster somewhere just because there's going to be. It's like, it's not
Yeah.
usually entirely functional plot. Sometimes it'll just be a side character. Sometimes it'll just be in the background for comedic effect. Sometimes it'll be an actual plot point. Sometimes the whole plot will go from normal story to kaiju fight somewhere, but I build up to it just because it's one of my isms. Stephen King has a lot of them, but yes, Misery, I will say it's good buildup of wanting him to escape and realizing things are just getting creepier the more I'm around, and I want you rooting for him to get away.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you put yourself in that situation, you just think how terrifying it would be.
Mm-hmm. Shining.
The Shining,
This.
yeah, I'd say that one is legitimately creepy, as there's a lot of stuff that's left to the interpretation on what it means. You don't know if he's just crazy or if the house is actually haunted. But what you do know is there's some dangerous shit going on between them, and it just leaves you to think about it a lot.
So hot take, I was never really afraid of this just because I never got the fear of it entirely. Like the little girls in the hallway, I'm like, okay, there's little girls in a hallway. That's not scary to me. The room full of blood, I'm like, all right, that's weird, but I never really got scared by it. Finding a dead body, creepy, but I'm like, okay, I'm still not like I was never entirely scared of this movie as a kid or even watching it now. I'm like, I appreciate a lot that's happening. Again, wonderful acting, good job of Jack Nicholson playing the character of Jack Nicholson playing Jack and seeing his sanity deteriorate over time. That is creepy.
Exactly.
I'm not afraid though. It's like watch this. Like I've never felt afraid. I'm like, this is a good study of a man losing his sanity. And I do that kind of often. So it's like I can relate to this actually. What was this? Nope. This was pretty good. I'll be honest.
I
Not
haven't seen it.
scary, but it's a very recent movie came out by
I know
Jordan
what it is.
Peele. All right, good. I would say watch it. It's not scary, but it's interesting. And yeah, that's kind of where that goes. It's interesting. I like the concept. I like where it leads to, and I like how like there's a twist with it. Not a big twist, but it's like, oh, it's a perspective change on how this thing is around, and I like that. It's like it makes me want to make something similar. I haven't figured it out yet. Texas Chainsaw Massacres.
Yeah, that one I'd say it's definitely on the disturbing end because you do root for because the people you're going for, they're just normal everyday people and you want to see them escape, and then you have all these very vile human beings just sitting there laughing, beating on her and things like that. That just makes you very uneasy. You grow a strong hatred towards these people because they're not like Jason Voorhees where it's like, you know, this guy's a terrible person, but he's cool. They're so realistic. You want to see something happen to them the same level you want to see something bad happen to an actual murderer. So yeah, with the realism of the case, yeah, definitely on the fucked up side.
Fair enough. I was in between those most of the time. I never really took an interest, but fair enough. What's X? Oh, that's new. Have you seen it or not yet? Neither have I. Nope. It just came out this year, apparently. 28 Days Later.
Never seen it, but I know what it is.
I'm aware of what it is. I wasn't really enthralled by it. It's interesting, but I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Midsommar.
I'll see it at some point. I don't know what that is.
I don't remember it. Get Out. That was fun.
It was good. Not necessarily that scary. Yeah. Not necessarily scary, but good.
Yeah, like it was again well-told story, very good acting, very good direction. It has a creepy idea, but I didn't get scared with it, which is what I'm aiming for. Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
No, zombie movies don't scare me. I'm putting a blanket on here now. No zombie movie scares me because the idea of zombies isn't scary to me. It seems too easy to deal with them. And I understand there's a lot of them. They are the most dangerous in giant swarms, or if they're running, or if they have very specific abilities. Like while playing Left 4 Dead with my friend, I'd be afraid of dealing with a witch. Or when we were trying to quietly get past a witch, I'd get like grabbed by the one with the long tongue. Lasher, Grabber, I forget their name.
Smoker.
But when one of them grabbed me, I'm like, oh geez, save me. And then I'd just be panicking.
Now, Left 4 Dead is scary from all the special infected, especially the tank. Oh my god.
The tank funny enough, I was afraid of the tank just because of how big and strong it was, but I was never afraid to really fight it because I knew how to dodge it.
Yeah.
It's like I know I can get past you. Or it's like, I know I can dodge you at least. Or every time he throws a rock, I know I can sidestep that. I know when you're charging, I know how to sidestep. I know how to play defense with a tank. It was the buildup of it. I'm like, all right, where is it? Especially when I lost sight of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Descent. This sounds familiar.
I seen it a while back, but I can't remember much about it.
Oh, I do remember. Somewhat. What was it? characters go somewhere in Europe and they go into these caverns under the ground, and the further down they go, it seems like they're kind of going further into hell. No, or is so as above, so below. I might be mixing them up.
Yeah.
Dang it! In that case, that I'm like mixing things up. All right, this scared me. Jaws scared me as a kid, outwardly.
Yeah, as a kid, it's definitely scary. As an adult, when you look at what it's going for, you do fear for the characters. There's definitely a lot of intensity there when the shark's attacking. So yeah, I'd say it's scary.
Yeah, even watching, I've rewatched all the Jaws movies, all of them. I think it was earlier this year or some point last year. So I still have them for like fairly fresh in mind, I guess. But I remember rewatching them. The first one still creeps me out just by how much they built up to this thing, because they had that thing of Bruce malfunctioning. They couldn't show it on screen. So my mind was continually playing into it. The music continually like starting off slow and progressively getting louder when it came closer. I'm like, this is creepy. Like, this is creepy, and that's good. And hearing that, like, like hearing that is like, I get chills through it. I'm like, that's a good job. We're out here. Night of the Living Dead. I said blanket over zombie movies were a no. All right.
Never seen it.
Wreck. I don't know.
I know what it is, but I never seen it.
Neither have I. Also, I'm going to put another blanket on there. A lot of the found footage movies, I don't like them because I get dizzy. And I can't pay it. Like, it's hard to tell what's going on when cameras are shaking so constantly. It's super annoying. I'm like, I'm not afraid because I'm trying to understand what's happening. And as soon as I got vertigo, it just made me dizzy.
Understandable.
Better watch out.
Never seen. Oh wait, I think I have seen it, but I don't think it's scary.
I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. Cabin in the Woods, not scary, but good movie.
Fun. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is a good movie that plays in the horror tropes and completely subverts your expectations, because guaranteed no one could have predicted how this movie would have gone. No one could have guessed it. I'm like, this movie is not scary. It's creepy, but it does so much so well. And then like near the end half of the movie, I'm like, you know what? I'm laughing and excited to see what comes up. Like, as someone who loves monsters, it's a guessing game of, oh, wait, I know this one. I know that one. I know this one. I know that one.
Blair Witch Project, never seen it.
Nah. Again, it's the found footage movie where a lot of people were scared by it. I wasn't, because I was annoyed. I was just annoyed. Interesting idea. It sparked way more, but I was never interested in it. Us came out last year. I don't know. I might have seen this one. Nah. All right. Train to Busan. Good movie.
I never seen it, but I do want to, because I heard it's really fucking good.
Very, very good movie. Again, I'm not afraid of the zombie plague, but I love the characters. I love the direction it is. I love how it's handled. Excellent movie.
Yeah, I still got
The Guest. I don't know.
Never seen it.
Do you? Exorcist.
Never seen it.
I've again, movie was ruined for me because I saw Scary Movie 2, which is parroting this movie.
Yeah, so it's good, but
yeah, I'm like, well, I can't uncross those wires now, because I'm like, oh, that was the scene from Scary Movie where they did this. I'm like, oh wait, well, because like it'll always trigger the other one. I'm like, I got nothing now.
Yeah,
Insidious.
As a kid, sure, it's definitely very creepy with a lot of stuff you see. But when you get older, while stuff like the Darth Maul demon that people call him still has some eeriness to him. And the ending to the first movie also has a lot of chills to it. At the same time, it's still nothing really outstanding in the supernatural horror genre.
So there's one movie that I haven't seen on here yet that did creep me out. And to this day, still creeps me out every time I watch it. I don't know if it's meant to be a horror movie, but it does something specific where it makes me so uneasy. I was just like, I had a hard time sleeping after watching it, because I'm just, I didn't expect this. Like, I didn't. I knew something was gonna happen, and then when it happened, I'm like, this is way more than I thought. Well, I'll tell you when we get to the end of this. All right. Carrie.
I never seen Carrie.
I saw it. I liked it. I was rooting for her the entire time. So I'm like, the minute she starts doing her things, I'm like, you know what? Good on you. So I'm like, I'm not afraid. I'm rooting for her. The Sixth Sense.
Yeah. Sixth Sense is creepy.
Thing, no? It's creepy.
Yeah, it's like, pretty good.
It's like, this is a nice little movie. I'm not scared by it, but this is a nice movie. Obviously, the twist is what really good with it. But I'm like, this is nice. Candyman.
Yeah.
I think you guys were talking about that, right?
Yeah. Candyman's a really good movie. It has its moments of creepy and eeriness building up to what the Candyman is and such.
Every time I watch it, I'm disappointed.
That's fair. Tony Todd's great, though, and I'm happy he's playing Venom in the upcoming Spider-Man game.
I thought he would be a dude made of candy. When I first heard Candyman, I thought, I'm like, oh, cool, a dude who sells candy killing kids, or a dude, or like a candy man out murdering people, like a Willy Wonka's horror show, like a Willy Wonka horror show. And I'm like, oh no, it's just a dude in a mirror. Like that's creepy. Like, it's a creepy gimmick, but my level of disappointment realizing it's not a sentient Candyman is like, oh, I will forever be disappointed by this. I did get Ice Cream Man, where there's an ice cream truck guy killing people.
Oh, I know what that is.
It wasn't a good movie, I'll let you know. Like, there's a lot of ice cream puns, but
I seen some of it, and I always thought it was laughable. Battle Royale, I do want to see it. I heard it's really good, and I still want to check it out.
Battle Royale. This is way better than any of the Hunger Game movies or anything else that came out.
That's what I've heard. Yes.
Yep, Battle Royale is absolutely wonderful. You should definitely watch it. There's some creepy moments in it, especially when it comes to a lot of the other characters. I'm not afraid, but I'm like, I'm afraid for the characters.
Yeah.
That's how I come across with that. You're next. I don't know this one.
Never seen it.
Cool, moving on. Ready or not?
I don't think I've seen that either.
Either way, Hereditary, that goddamn car scene. I don't know what they're talking about.
I don't remember if I've seen Hereditary. I know what it is, that's for sure, but I can't remember if I watched it.
Fair enough. All right, so that was the end of the list. They don't have it. So
okay. As I was about to say about Pennywise and It, the first movie,
go ahead, because they didn't have that.
It's not necessarily, it's not necessarily terrifying, but Tim Curry, I think, really sold the role as Pennywise. Like, we were just talking to Georgie in this very deep and horrifying tone by going, yes, they float. The way he's saying it, you can tell his intentions are hostile, and it just really, really freaks you out.
So in Tim Curry's defense, he can also just be really creepy. When I first saw Rocky Horror Picture Show, I was creeped out by that, where I'm like, what the hell am I staring at? It was too much for my young brain to understand. And to this day, I'm like, my brain can't function with this movie. But he knows how to be creepy, how to be scary, and he seems like he's always having the most fun time in a role.
Exactly. Like, I think the perfect casting choice for Pennywise is being both funny and creepy. Same goes for Joker, but that's another story. That's a story for another time. But when it came to Pennywise, Tim Curry delivered both worlds, and I think the new actor for Pennywise did that same thing, but nothing beats how Tim Curry delivered those lines at the beginning of the original.
Oh yeah, he did a phenomenal job with those. Where I didn't watch it as a kid, but watching it over time growing up, I'm like, this is definitely creepy. Where if I was a kid, I'd be afraid of this. I recognize Tim Curry from the Muppet movies, so that would have been that would have added an extra level of fear. Because in Muppet Treasure Island, he played a bad guy pirate. He played Long John Silver. So I'm like, oh, I would be able to recognize him from there. And then going from that to seeing him as some sort of demon clown, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with this information, and now I'm afraid.
Exactly.
That's how I would. So I'm a little sad that movie wasn't on there. So there is a movie that came out. I'm gonna look this up because this is a movie that brought 2014. It's an American horror comedy written and directed by Kevin Smith based on a story from his podcast. It's called Tusk. Have you heard of it?
I know what it is. Yeah, it's fucked up. I haven't seen it, but I know the concept of it, and it's...
Yep. So Tusk is fucking what I even call it? Yeah, it's filmed and directed by Kevin Smith. It stars Justin Long as some sort of like podcast talk show host. It has Johnny Depp in it in a random role. It has Haley Joel Osment as a character, and I'm like, it's like it. Apparently, it didn't do well in the box office because the budget was $3 million. It made 1.9. But I'm like, this movie was freaking it scared me specifically because all right, you know, so Justin Long is some sort of he's a podcaster and he's looking for someone eccentric. He goes up to Canada to find some guy who has a lot of stories to tell, and the old man is nice. And like he's nice, but the level of creepy nice where it's like something's wrong here. Maybe he's a decent dude, maybe he's not. I'm not sure. But the old man starts talking about how he had this friendship with a walrus and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm like, I'm suspicious and I'm waiting for some sort of heel turn. And the old man ends up poisoning him. But in the movie, you can't tell if it's poison or a weird spider that's getting him. Turns out the old man poisoned him, and then he turned Justin Long into a sentient werewolf. A walrus.
Huh. Yeah, I know that movie's existence.
Yeah, so, and it's not even, like, it's weird. Like, the thing that creeped me out was you go from seeing Justin Long with, you see Justin Long as a human, then you see him in a wheelchair, missing his legs, and then as soon as he realizes what's going on, no one's going to save him in time, he gets drugged again. The next time you see him, he is in a walrus costume made of skin from other victims this old man killed.
Jesus.
It's horrifying. He has like tusks glued into his face. It looks like he was surgically turned into a walrus.
I always thought he was.
I was like, this is horrifying. The fact that he's making he's making sounds trying to scream for help, but it's also just like, oh yeah, I switched your vocal cords so you can sound more like a walrus. And then the old man starts like getting naked with him and then turned himself into a walrus so they can like wrestle each other. I'm like, what is happening? I am afraid of so much right now because I still have a hard time comprehending it. But seeing just Justin Long's face in that weird walrus costume is a level of body horror that makes me that scares me. It's the idea of being transformed into a monster. Like Cenobites is creepy, but I'm like, all right, that's body horror of you guys are feeling pain and you guys are tearing people apart. Whatever. But body horror of transforming one into another is what gets me. Because as dreams, I've had that, and I've had nightmares of transforming into monsters where I can't control myself anymore. And I'm inside that form trying to hold back against an opponent I couldn't originally defeat unless I had to transform. And then I couldn't stop. It hits a different level for me. And like, this is terrifying. And seeing this walrus is like, I never thought I would ever want to see a human turn into a walrus, but now that's in my brain and will haunt my nightmares forever.
Yeah, but it's like that movie's known for being fucked up.
Moments, I'll tell everyone, watch it. If it's not jump scare horrors, it's not weird, it's not bloody horror, it's not like gore horror, it's like this is weird as hell, and I would not have seen this coming, and that's what scares me the most, because I'm pretty open-minded, I'm pretty creative. A lot of people tell me I come up with ideas no one would think of, and this is one of those things I'm like, I would have never thought of this, and now that I know this, I am terrified.
Well, yeah, a lot of the most creative minds. I don't know
what's going to be next.
Yeah, a lot of the most creative minds make the most fucked up shit.
Tim Burton will always be an inspiration because I went to a museum that had a lot of his art displayed once. It was wonderful, and he had some weird stuff. I'm like, all of this is super weird and kind of creeps me out. But at the same time, I know Tim Burton's art style. I'm like, this makes perfect sense for a man like him, and I loved it.
Most definitely.
But it was inspiring. So it was inspiring to seem like, it was inspiring. Like, people probably told him that he was insane for majority of his life for making these drawings and being so weird and dark and gloomy. But he found a way to make something of himself. I'm like, that's inspiring to me. Like, you took all of that criticism and continued making something that people love now. It's like, I want to do that. I guess that's the idea for all artists. Yeah,
most definitely.
So yeah, those are my things. I'm afraid. I'm sure there's a few other things in there that I'm afraid of too, but I definitely know babies, octopus, killer whale, deep ocean, intimacy. But that's more of a psychological problem than a phobia. That's more like PTSD from bad relationships. Orca, I think that's really all of them. I can't think of any real more things that I'm afraid of. I'm sure there's another somewhere. What about you?
Yeah. I'd say that's really all I got for now. I'm sure I could mention more later, but none on the top of my head right now. So we should probably end this so I can finish up the Matango review. Really enjoyed this.
Have fun, good sir. I'm going to go eat some candy and lie down because my back hurts because I'm old.
Well, have a great day, man. I really enjoyed doing this with you.
Yeah, it's always fun. We never had these closed sessions before. I was just hoping someone else around. But you know what? I enjoyed you too.
Oh, yeah, so I did. It's always nice to be able to do these.
Yeah, so you can do the sign off. I didn't think of one for this.
Okay, well, that's it for this episode. Please comment your thoughts down below, and if you enjoy it, smash that like button, share it around, and subscribe. If you are watching the edited version that'll later come on YouTube, also feel free to check them out on Twitch, to check out the Twitch channel that's linked in the description down below alongside the social medias, so you can watch them live if that interests you. This is Gojin the Makai Phantom, leaving the building.
Bye-bye!